Hey everyone, this is Chris. Welcome back to the channel. So we're talking about the stock market, and we're making it through earnings week. Nothing too disastrous as of yet. My feeling is most likely Wall Street set sort of estimates really, really low. Basically, you want to set a low bar, and then companies can then beat earnings reports. But doesn't necessarily mean that earnings are good. It just means that Wall Street set the bar so low. Also, too, if you're new here, my name is Chris, and this is to help you navigate and grow. So let's get into it. So this is Tesla. So they had a strange earnings report, and I do mean strange. The basic gist of it is, yes, they're still selling cars. 100% they're selling cars. And oftentimes, whenever we talk about a company like Tesla, people who like Tesla, they already got their mind made up. So it doesn't really matter what I say. And people who don't like Tesla, they already got their mind made up too. So, why even bother? Well, I do think it's interesting to talk about, to be really frank. Tesla has often traded at a premium, meaning that, if you just look at their fundamentals, it's trading a bit expensive. But because it trades at a premium, meaning that people like it, and it is a dependable company, they tend to do well. It just trades expensive. So me, myself, I tend to be more on the bear side just because I don't want to overpay for stocks. When something's trading at a premium, it essentially means that people know that necessarily the numbers don't matter, but we all like it, so therefore we're buying it. That's sort of what my feeling on that is. The thing that was interesting though is that they sold a bunch of Bitcoin, and this was the funky thing about it, because if they didn't sell all of their Bitcoin, they would have been cash flow negative. It seemed like we knew all these things before. There's nothing like mysterious going on. They were losing money essentially by burning cash, in Elon's own words, in the Berlin factory and the Austin factory, and essentially selling all their Bitcoin, what we think is probably a loss. I say think because they don't necessarily report all of that. They didn't give many details. So, but if you sort of like speculate when they announced when they first bought it, it was like they bought like 1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, and then announced that they could have sold it, but we don't know exactly. One estimate is they're buying these things at say 38,000 and then selling them around 29,000. And they had nearly $1 billion in Bitcoin that they said they got, because they said the sale here is 936 million. And again, we know they bought at roughly 1.5 billion. So they probably took a loss on there. And one of the things that Elon was saying is that this is what they're saying. Because one of the things I really want to stress with this is that when you listen to earnings calls or read reports and stuff like that, take what CEOs say with a grain of salt. Some people take whatever Elon says as gospel, but do understand, in any business, situation, a CEO is there to sell his business the same way, or her business, the same way, a salesperson comes to your office and tries to, pitch you some B2B product. They're there to sell you. So it's not like any CEOs just come out and say, oh my God, our company's terrible and everything is awful and et cetera, et cetera. They're trying to sell you the company. So just be aware of that. Because sometimes people say, oh, well, Elon said X and therefore it must be true. I'm sure you guys get my point. But they were saying that because of uncertainty in China, we wanted to make sure we have a bunch of cash on the books, and so therefore we sold Bitcoin. But it doesn't necessarily mean that like we don't trust Bitcoin. It was something like that. Bitcoin was crashing a bit after Tesla's announcement, and in fact, Bitcoin had been on the rise. I think it was a low of like 17,000, and I think at one point it was around 23.5 or even 24. Last I checked, Bitcoin was trading around 23. It's really volatile, so who knows? But Tesla's support of Bitcoin was certainly something that people, who are into Bitcoin really, really liked, that, corporations were all buying into this thing. Evidently, though, for whatever reason, Tesla didn't sell any of their Dogecoin. So, you be the judge of that, what to make of that one. The other thing, too, which I think is interesting, this is a quote from Elon here. He's saying, you cannot just raise prices to some arbitrary high level because you pass the affordability boundary and then demand falls off a cliff. So what they're talking about here, and this is something that's been kind of up and down, just like the stock market. First, sometimes you read headlines that Tesla's raising prices on their cars, and then you read headlines that they're going to be lowering prices. So I don't know what they're doing. They just seem to, how can I say, follow the materials trend, because it's just real. If the price of steel goes up, or the price of but the price of like rubber goes up, just whatever it costs to make cars, probably said lithium, say with batteries, it goes up, whatever, it affects the input cost, right? And they've been raising their prices. However, this is very real, right? When you're in a market of cars to buy, and say one car is 40% more than another, where's the point to where like I like Tesla, but I don't want to pay double than say what I could get a BMW at, something like that. So price does matter. Elon's not stupid; he knows that. So one of the things I think is going to put pressure on them, and someone asked me about this before about, hey, Chris, how could other car companies compete with Tesla if Tesla has better margins, which is perfectly true. They do have better margins. Their margins are changing. In the past, they were saying like 30, 32, 33% margin, which is very, very good for auto industry. The last time they reported margins, which is just coming this quarter, they're more like, say, 27, 28%. In comparison to, say, other car companies where cars aren't a great margin, you might be looking at like 10 to 12%, say, for like a Ford or GM. The thing with Tesla, though, is when their margins aren't so great compared to what they were before due to, building new factories, due to building supply, what do we call it? Supply chain and material costs going up, right? Your margins decrease. So you can increase your prices, but that might affect demand. The other thing is, too, just to answer some of the question, get back to the original point, was that how can legacy car companies come to Tesla if their margins aren't as good? Well, legacy car companies, if they're selling, let's say they're selling 1 million cars a year or whatever, and their EVs make up, say, 20,000, 30,000, or even 100,000 of their cars, they can afford to take, losses or decrease the amount of sales in one category, right? So say, for example, in EV, they can take losses in that, whereas they can, make that up in other profits and other things. The same way with Amazon can, say, sell their cloud like crazy, right? That makes all their profits, and they can afford to take a loss on, say, their delivery. So, this is sort of how the legacy automakers can compete with Tesla, because they already have revenue coming in, and so they can afford to take a loss in one section, let's say the EVs, to try to just drive prices down. This is something that Starbucks used to do. I don't know if they still do today. So what Starbucks would do essentially would build like 3 coffee shops on the same corner. This is real. And then what they would do is like, basically lower prices, take a losses, say, on those 3 shops, and then try to drive their competitors out of business. Once their competitors go out of business, then they can raise prices because they didn't have a monopoly. It's business. It's not nice. But this is part of competition, right? And it's kind of a race to the bottom, and everyone's margins decrease. So when there are more choices on the market on EVs, we'll see how Tesla does. I just think competition is coming. People who are bulls think, oh no, there's no other car companies in the world. We're only going to buy Tesla. Good luck with that. That's my opinion on that. So it's not a terrible company by any stretch, but I just want you to be aware that the Bitcoin sale was kind of the funky wrench that none of us were, I don't want to say none of us were expecting, but just sort of like, I wasn't like, oh, you're going to sell your Bitcoin to raise cash and then pretend like it's not a big deal. So I'll just say, I'll be curious for anyone who's super testable, I don't sit around and watch all the other Tesla channels. I just don't, how they're spinning the sale of Bitcoin. Other news today as well is regarding the market. So our markets have been rallying. And one thing that's kind of interesting is, I'm a bit bearish on the market because I been saying that all the companies are either laying off people or have freezing and hiring. So Microsoft, the last time we checked, they said they were hiring. This was like a week or so ago. As it turns out, I guess that was a bunch of BS. They're saying that, in fact, they're not hiring. They're cutting a bunch of job listings. You can see here the weakening economy. So this is, what I've been telling you guys all along is companies don't want to publicly announce that they're freezing hiring because it sours their stock and sours investors, sentiment on a particular company. But it looks like even Microsoft is slowing down in hiring. And this is just a reality, right? If you're a company, you just don't want to have too many people on staff if you're projecting a slowdown. That's just a reality, right? You guys understand that. And moreover, we're seeing a cooling in the housing market. I'll try to do a separate housing video today when I get a chance to look at the data. But basically, people are buying less houses because interest rates are going up. I think this will continue to be a trend for a while because as long as the interest rates go up, we're looking at probably 0.75%, maybe a full percentage point in a few. Like come in next week is like July 26th, 27th. They've already leaked, this is the Fed, they've leaked 0.75%, so 75 basis points, but we'll see if indeed that comes to pass. And I think that's sort of why markets have been rallying is people were worried it was going to be a full 100 basis point, 1%, but it may come a little bit less than that. Also, too, we're experiencing crazy heat here in the USA, so it's not just in the UK. And depending on what your state you're in, you're probably gonna like heat. We're in North Carolina. It's been hot here, I can tell you. So one of the things, it's funny, for whatever reason in the USA, science is political. I always find that so strange. I don't think science cares. Like the weather doesn't care. if it's hot, we can all like literally look and say, oh my God, it's really hot. If we continue having these kind of record temperatures, I'll just say that energy use with air conditioning and stuff like that will be a real thing. So hopefully we can go to alternative energy and figure out a way to meet our energy needs during this time, and also have clean air and clean water. So it's odd that these kind of issues are political to me. I don't know. I want clean air. I want clean water, and I'd like us to go to renewable energy sources. It is what it is. Also, too, this is sort of also a bit of BS. Actually, this is sort of the BS day. So they turn on the Nord gas stream, and if you understand what's going on with basically Ukraine and Russia, the whole thing started with there were two pipelines going from Russia to Germany, and it was oil and gas. This is all about money, and basically when Russia invades Ukraine, all of Europe says, oh, they scoff at it and they're bad. And actually, to be perfectly frank, I don't want to make light of it. It's actually is a huge tragedy, what's happening in Ukraine. There's just Russia's essentially destroying buildings and schools and hospitals. So I don't want to make any light of it. But I do want to point out that I just feel like the way the European response has been is a bit of BS. If you really want to stop Russia, just stop buying their energy. Stop buying it, right? But evidently they're turning the gas pipes back on, and so they're continuing to buy Russian energy and essentially fuel the war that they're supposedly against. So this is, I call BS on this. So I'll be curious to you guys' opinion on that. It is what it is, and it just made me feel like this whole thing is just stupid. So it's stupid all around, and I just, if we're against the war, to stop buying their energy. But people. And I don't believe I really get it. People need energy. So the sooner that the Americans can, and us, the sooner that we can come up with, alternative ways to produce energy and sell it to around the world. I think this is nothing more American than that. I've said that so many times, right? For us here in USA to, R&D, new technologies, and to be further frank, right, let's say Tesla gets involved in this, and we give Tesla a bunch of money to, develop solar power or whatever, and then, develop that technology here, give a bunch of Americans jobs building these things, sell it around the world. I think there's nothing more American than that. So I actually get pretty upset. I've been talking about alternative energy for years, and I'm not alone. I mean, there's several Americans out there that are in my camp that don't want to be reliant on Russia or Saudi Arabia for energy needs, and we're just a bunch of hypocrites if we keep buying this stuff. So we, meaning Europe at this point. So that's what's up with that. Also, too, in regards of talking about autocracies and those things, I guess China's putting their claws into HSBC, which is one of the big banks around the world. And so this is something that is how can I say, you guys know this. I mean, I served in the United States Navy, and I used to work in China. And as much as I love living in China, to be frank, it's great. But I'm also well aware that I will take the U.S. government over the Chinese government any day of the week. So until you know what it's like to live in China and understand how the government works, you'll know my feelings. But the basic gist of it is that we complain all we want about, say, the American government, and I complain. It's our right to complain, right? But in China, there's no freedom of speech, so you can complain, but essentially the media is controlled, and you won't hear about those complaints. And the more that the Communist Party takes control of different things, it is not good for the world, in my opinion. So. I'm not thrilled to see this kind of headlines, and this is more manipulation and I don't mean to say, and if you understand politics in China and stuff, it's not like they're all evil or anything like that. It's just more like the basic way to describe it. Just imagine here in USA, and we'll go to this point here. Here in USA, neither of us want Trump or Biden. This is really funny. So a poll came out, and 71% don't want Biden to run, and 64% don't want Trump to run. So it feels like if they both run again, it's like, well, I don't like either guy, but I don't like, or how's the way to report it? I hate this guy less than I hate that guy. So that's sort of how our candidates are. But think of Chinese politics as like, you don't even have a choice of which guy to hate. They just put someone up there and you hate them, and what can you do? So oftentimes, though, I do feel like our politics is the same. I mean, as consider myself young and fairly educated, I was like, when these guys ran, I didn't want either of them. I knew other people that were in this camp as well, and you get kind of fed up with politics. So this is going back to, say, China's politics, to where people complain all the time. They're human to complain, but they can't change it. And in the same regard in US, sometimes I feel like what's wrong with our system? But, for us, and this is just more political, and I had a conversation with a neighbor yesterday about this, is just where, unfortunately, and it's not nice, but it's just the reality, we have voter bases that are set in their ways. And, in my opinion, until we get candidates that you could argue third party or argue self-financed, it'll be tough to change our system because there's so much money in our system, and that's the reality of it. And I'm not even talking about issues. I'm just talking about the core issue, and I'm not even talking about policy, but the core issue of our politics is that there's just so much money into it, and anyone who wants to run has to raise money, and then you become essentially a servant of money. And until we get out of that system, our politics won't change that much. However, I have my preferences of who I hate less, but I do have a dislike for both parties. I've said that several times in this channel. So yeah, the Americans are on my side. 71% don't like Biden, and 64% don't like Trump. So if they were to run again, I guess Trump would have a chance of winning. But I don't want to live in a world where we're debating on who we like less, and that's who we vote for. That's not a great choice. And then the last thing I want to talk about with the markets is we're still trading at a Shiller P ratio of 29. Historically, our Shiller PE is at 15, 16, 17 in that range. So we're still trading pretty high. And the way to get this Shiller PE down, if you understand what this is how we value the market, control for inflation. This comes from a professor over at Yale, and the basic gist of it: either price of stocks need to come down or earnings of companies need to go up. We haven't really had that. So our earnings season, as it started at the beginning, has been Wall Street set the bar really low, and companies have been beating these low estimates, but it's not like companies are crushing it. My feeling on, say, the S&P, and this is probably pretty accurate, I would say, maybe we go up 10% from here or down 10% from here. I feel like, though, if you look at sort of the way the world is working, I just feel like there's more risk to the downside than there is chance of great boom to the upside. So even though you could go 10 from here or 10 down from here or 10 up from here, I think there's a larger chance of, say, 30% down from here than, say, 30% up from here. But irregardless, flat is probably your base case is what I would bet. Flat to bearish. That's sort of my feeling on it. Yes, the markets have been rallying the last couple of days, and it kind of turns everyone into a trader, which trade is in trades, but it's not really great advice for regular people just to be trading all the time. The best advice is just be in companies that you like, be in companies that are profitable, which I really emphasize profitable. And I like dividend stocks, but like I said, it is certainly true in this last couple of weeks. If you're in unprofitable companies that are rising up, they're doing really well. But me personally, I would be just trading, but it's hard to advise people on that because I look at some of these profitable companies that are going up, and it's like, well, why are we going up again? I mean, we're going into recession. Companies aren't hiring. Where's the money going to come from to buy your products, et cetera, that kind of stuff. So that's my thoughts on this. And I keep saying to you guys all along, Series I bonds are really good right now. Cash is good right now as well. Series I bonds, cash, and balance out your portfolio. So hopefully everything's going great with you guys. And I know I talk a whole bunch of stuff sometimes, but hopefully it's okay. And I do appreciate you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.